Okay guys, this is the final stove. I'm going to show you as I break it down how it was made, and I'll spend a lot of time for the novice or those that need a little bit more help. I'll give you every detail that you need. We know that this stove with a chimney at that level is a no smoke stove. This is to simulate a chimney that would run up, through your attic and out through your roof. You can decide to take that back chimney up higher with fire brick for more mass. We'll talk about that in a moment. The main decision you need to make when making this stove, this was a rocket stove barrel. It's a 55-gallon, your basic oil drum. I had to plug the hole. You would not need to cut a hole. You can get them at scrap yards. These barrels with an open end for 10 bucks. You have to decide how high up you want this back chimney to go. 5 fire bricks makes a 1 fire brick opening. In other words, we know at this level, adding stovepipe on top of this, especially insulated stovepipe, we know it's no smoke. For 90% of the time, it will be completely no smoke. If that's important to you, if you have neighbors that could complain, or you're in a part of the EU and regulators or whatever, then keep this back chimney low like this. We know this is no smoke. If you have a lot of land, you don't care as much about a little smoke, then if you can afford the cost of the fire brick, I'd go up as high as you can with that back chimney, because it's mass that'll heat up and stay warm. If you can go up 4, 5, 6 feet with that, just keep doing the 5. But it's possible it will it might take 15 to 20 minutes to go to very low smoke or no smoke. The longer you increase that back chimney run, even if it's mortared, it's more cold brick that needs to heat up. It will smoke a bit. However high you decide to take the back chimney, at some point you need to transition to 6-inch stovepipe. Hopefully you made your insulated pipe. You don't have to. Single wall will work. You need to make something like this. The insulated pipe that I made really does well with these. You pour your cement, make your forms, because the 6-inch stovepipe sits right down in here, and the larger pipe, the 8-inch galvanized pipe, kind of sits on the ledge. Very easy. How you want to attach your 6-inch stovepipe, connect your 6-inch stovepipe to your masonry back chimney is up to you. There are things you can buy online that are pretty expensive. I don't know, like 150 bucks or something. Okay, whatever I show you here, we know worked from the last test. What I show you here, we know worked. So if I give a recommendation, like you could make your wall 1 stack of bricks higher, I think these are good recommendations. I couldn't lift the barrel over a high wall. But we know, if you're not sure, we know what's here works. If you want to copy this exactly. So let's start with the wall. See how it cleaned, when it's so hot, it just cleans the fire bricks up to when the heat intensity just goes down a bit. So the wall is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 high. Clarification, the wall is 7 high over what would be considered the top of the stove. The wall goes all the way to the bottom base. The barrel, you can see the outline of the barrel as to where exactly the barrel sat. So there was almost an inch gap here between the barrel and the wall for some gases and flame to slip around the corners. We'll talk about that in a second. I would add, here's where the barrel is, of course, 33 and a half. What else is new? The barrel is 33 and a half. So the difference between my wall and the barrel, my wall there is only about 18. I don't know, 12, 13 inch difference. So we know this works, and the top of the barrel got very hot. I would probably add just two more bricks to the top of your wall. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you wanted to put 1 in the middle, you could. I probably wouldn't. One more makes sense. Do not take your wall up too high. It's not going to help you. Okay, from the other side, the gases go up to hit the top of the barrel. They come down the back wall, down that channel. There is this wall here is 2 bricks wide, and at the bottom is a 3 brick opening. I'll show it to you, of course, as I break it down. Now, one thing you may want to do is the barrel. You can see there's an inch or so between the barrel and the wall, like we talked about. I probably would reach in, or somehow, if you can, I probably would stuff that space just about 8 or 10 inches up. So I don't really want a lot of cold gases, or I mean any gases that potentially could be cold. That's what you're trying to avoid. When the fire is raging, just completely raging, it doesn't matter. It's when things get a little cooler. I don't want any cool gases to slide around and get into this channel. So I want everything to go up and over. I probably would, we know this works, remember, so if you don't want to do it, don't do it, but I probably would just split the difference. I would fill the gap somehow, if you can. I don't know how you even get in there once the barrel's overturned. 8 to 10 inches up, stuff it with mineral wool or whatever. I don't know. If you have to leave it open, it's fine. It really doesn't make much of a difference. Okay, I'm in the process of taking the wall apart. Remember, this is not attached. You can do what you're going to hold the barrel up with. You can do at the end, whatever you decide to use. Okay, so I should probably just remove these now. In a moment I will. So the wall is simply 2 fire bricks, and then it's what I decided to do, because I like to stagger for support, is 2 halves and a single in the middle. You could just go 2 fire bricks if you don't want to make the cuts. You could go 2 fire bricks. It is not that important, because this isn't even mortared. But the wall, goes all the way down. Okay, this is where we are. I took the support off here, and before I take the support off this side, I just want to show you something. When you make these stoves, you have to think about expansion. If you put red brick up against fire brick, you have to understand that the fire brick expands much more than the red brick. And if you don't put a layer of insulation or a flexible mortar like a clay and a perlite or something, it'll crack your red brick if you push red brick right up against fire brick. And you also just have to think about expansion in terms of the barrel too. The metal will expand much more than the fire brick. Okay, with the sides removed for the barrel, this is the stove. And I'll take a picture at each level for you guys. From this point on, I'll take a picture at each level so you see exactly where the bricks are. So of course, there's your firebox. This piece of metal is, of course, to hold the barrel. You should do this anyway. 20 gauge steel or less. Less gauge is thicker and stronger. 20 gauge or 18 gauge steel. I know you can easily get 20 gauge at most hardware stores. Barrel sits here, and then if you can, you want to make some cuts with your fire bricks to fill in this space as well. So of course the flames, you can see how it cleaned all the fire bricks, come up over the wall, down the back channel. This wall is too thick, which is good. It's more thermal mass. It's an additional 50, 60 pounds or whatever. Down, 3 brick opening at the bottom. Some would recommend a 2 brick opening. I don't ever want to take a chance of pinching it off. 3 brick opening at the bottom. Of course, then it comes up here into whatever chimney you decide to do at this level and above. You can continue up 5 fire bricks. It makes a 1 fire brick opening. You could continue this up for 6 more feet, or you could transition here, hopefully, to your insulated stovepipe will draft like crazy. Single wall will work too. It's just, and it actually will act a little bit more like a radiator. I like the idea of the insulated stovepipe with like a clay or a dirt or something between the 2 pipes that could act as a thermal mass, but I've never experimented with that yet. Okay, the main level of the stove is 10 fire bricks high. A US fire brick is 9 inches by 4.5 by 2.5. Fire bricks in Europe and around the world may be different. 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 That's where the metal lays, at level 10. Okay, I had an additional 4 bricks here at layer 11 to give an additional, put the roof, the top of the firebox. Whenever, I think, yeah, you'd probably want to put 2 more levels of 4 bricks, because you never want flames lapping up against just 1 level of fire brick in case you get a crack in the gases. If you want to go up 5 or 6 levels of 4 bricks, that just acts as more thermal mass. Why not? Okay, removing the last 2 bricks to get to level 8. So this is still level 9. So level 9 goes on top of your door. Okay, level 9 goes... Whoops! Yeah, I need a helper. Did it break? No. That's why you get a... That's why you get... that's why you get a... This is my test door. It's okay. It'll hold up. I'm leaving out in the rain. I don't give a shit. This is row 10 that supports the barrel. Again, additional fire brick will continue up the wall 7 or 8 more rows depending on what you decide to do. But level 10 supports the metal of the barrel and the metal plate in front that helps support the barrel. Then 2 more fire bricks, 2 fire bricks go next to that, so you get something that looks like that. Then you have to double it up. You have to put 4 more on top of the 4 you see there. And then you'll have, you can see the curve of the barrel, the outline of the barrel. Your barrel won't touch the fire bricks. There'll be 2 inches or so between the fire bricks and the edge of the barrel. You want to fill that, you have more than the metal. You want to fill that in with some sort of mortar or cob or whatever you decide to do. On Amazon.com, this is the high flame door that I used. It seems like every time I take a look at it, it gets more and more expensive. But it is heavy duty. It says clean out door. I mean, if sometimes it's not available on Amazon. All these 8-inch clean out doors are probably the same. And it's plenty of room to add big pieces of oak and hardwood. You absolutely can be a primary door for this stove if you can't afford a glass door or something fancy. If you can afford a glass door, this is your best bet at firespeaking.com. The bottom 3 that are least expensive all would work for this stove, but you'll need to make some cuts into your fire brick, like the K404 down through the one that's the cheapest. It gives the back dimensions at Fire Speaking. Again, your stove is only 18 inches wide. It's only a 2-brick stove, so just check the back dimensions. You'll have to make some cuts with your wet saw. And this seems expensive, but guys, there are some, masonry heater places where the doors are $700, $1,000, $1,500. This is as inexpensive as it gets for a glass door in making your own stove. The regular fire brick needs refractory mortar for the firebox as well as the wall where all the flames are going to lap up. We could talk about other options where it's not getting direct flame. Amazon.com is not the greatest place for refractory mortar. It's very expensive. I got 10 on there at my brick yard, my brick and concrete block yard that serves contractors. It was about $45 for a 40-pound bag. So what is this? $28 for, does it say the weight? I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time here. It's expensive. The good news is your joints are extremely small for fire brick. They should be really as small as you can make them. If you're a newbie at laying brick, you got to put a little bit of a joint in, like an eighth of an inch, or a little bit more, because you might have to make up ground at the end. You might fall short. A joint allows you to make corrections, so the stove doesn't look like hell. So the joints need to be a little bit bigger if you're a complete novice. But when once you dunk your fire brick, get it soaking wet, you apply your refractory mortar, and you use a rubber hammer. You get that joint down as small as you can. But that's why you want to dry lay first to make sure everything's lining up. You don't want to just keep going and then find out you're a half inch off at the end, and it'll look like hell. And you're not even supposed to have a joint bigger than the standard 3/8 for refractory mortar anyway. Just sorry to be long-winded. The joint should be small, small, small. Okay, for sealing the barrel to the 10th row of fire brick, this is the product I like. I couldn't find it on Amazon. I don't know why. I've seen it before, but they're all pretty much probably the same. High temperature stove and furnace cement. There's something called mortar that comes in a caulk gun. I wouldn't use the ones that come in a caulk gun. This stuff's thicker. You just get a rubber glove on. You just cake it around the barrel as the barrel meets the fire brick. Probably would be best to get one of those caulk products, the mortar, and just caulk. And then when that dries, I would go on top with something like this just to be safe. I mean, those gases are blasting down at the bottom of the barrel. You certainly don't want them coming into your living room, but I didn't see any gases coming out even when I had no mortar. So not that I recommend that, but just cake this stuff around the bottom of the barrel, and it doesn't get real hard. It would be easy to chisel it off in 3 or 4 years to add another or a brand new barrel. Without a doubt, the most challenging part, the hardest part, is installing the door. This is the back of the fire-speaking glass door, but the back of the high-flame iron door in Amazon is very similar. It just has that lip all the way around. The bottom lip sits on top of the fire brick shelf, and then you continue to build your fire brick, of course, on the top lift and continue on the top lip and continue to go up. Now, the Russians will put a 1/4 inch of, like a ceramic fiber insulation, a very small layer for expansion around that square, around the lip on each side, and have that insulation then press into the mortar. But you can't use, I don't believe you can use high temperature or refractory mortar for the door. High temperature refractory mortar, like really tiny joints, I've like dropped a bunch on the floor before, and you can just pick it up and it just crumbles. There's no strength to it unless there's really small joints, and I wouldn't use it. I don't have a whole lot of experience with it, but what I would do is if the Imperial, I think the Imperial, what I just showed you, the high temperature cement in that little tub, I think that would work well. I don't know how expensive it is. When I got it, it was like $6. It seems like it's a lot more now. I think that would work. It hardens up nice. It might be somewhat flexible. So if you don't want to use, if you don't want to get 3 or 4 tubs of the Imperial, you could use 3 parts sand to 1 part clay, fire clay, to 1 part type S cement. Now, I know cement, it doesn't go well with high heat, but this is not directly in the flame, and it's only 1 part cement to 3 parts sand to 1 part fire clay. So if I would just wrap the lip there with ceramic fiber insulation, just a 1/4 inch or so, and then put on your the shelf you're going to sit it on, just plop down a bunch of mortar, whatever you decide to use, 3 part sand, 1 part fire clay, 1 part type S, or even a little bit more cement. It's not going to get ridiculous temperatures, the door of this stove. Maybe 2 parts cement, and just plop it down into the mortar, but and then do the same with the sides. Again, that high flame door fits perfectly almost as it is without any cuts. But you don't want to, like when you go to the sides, you don't want to ever smush the lip or the iron lip up against the fire brick, because all that does is squeeze out all of your mortar. You want to push it to you still have about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch between your fire brick and your the lip of your door. Don't ever push it real tight, because that'll just push out all the mortar. There's no point. You just have to push it until you get to that about that 1/2 inch, and then let the mortar set up, whatever you decide to use. Now the high flame door has 2 holes, not at the bottom, at the top, but on the left and on the right. But that just doesn't work. It just doesn't. And some of these doors have holes. You can't drill like a small. You can't drill a small hole into fire brick and then put one of those blue screws in for masonry. The fire brick's just too brittle. It won't hold up, in my opinion. It won't grab and won't hold. You could try it, but I don't know if it'll. I don't know. It depends on your fire brick. I mean, even batch to batch, I've seen sometimes they're brittle, sometimes some are harder than others. I take it back. It depends on your fire brick. You could try to drill a small hole, and then go with those blue screws, go in like that. And it worst comes to worst, the if it cracks, so what? Just repair it. I mean, just repair it with that imperial stuff. It'll crack over time. And the Russians use the hole. They don't typically drill. They use the hole to attach wire, 10 inches of wire, and then they shove the wire in between the layers of the fire brick, so it just keeps the door from falling out if the mortar cracks. They have it as a backup, 10, 12 inches of wire that's sandwiched between 2 fire bricks inside the refractory mortar, and that's kind of like another way of holding the door. And the Russians use thin wire, kind of like easy enough to bend by hand, but not thick enough, not thick like a coat hanger. That's just that you need to be able to have it kind of malleable, and it's also not directly in the flame. It should hold up also for a long time. There's no easy way to do this. Worst comes to worst, it starts cracking like crazy. Fine, you just chisel out your mortar and try something else. It's not a big deal. Your door is relatively small. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. I've only built one full-size masonry heater, and I've only, let's just say I haven't tested it very much. So I don't know. My expertise is how gases flow in the tests that I do out back. A couple things we didn't talk about. I just used my fire brick on the right and on the left to hold the edge of the barrel. But that's my fire brick is this brick place is actually pretty cheap. But still, even still, $2.10 per brick, and it's probably in some areas of the country where it's going to be a lot more expensive than that. So you could use anything, to hold the barrel up on the right and on the left, as long as you could get it pretty flush with its height or its level. And but it depends how much money you have, how cool if money and time is no object, to have stone build up around the left and the right to hold the barrel, and then to have that stone kind of curve around the barrel in the front. Remember, you have to fill that gap where that piece of metal's laying, that piece of metal that holds the barrel, the piece of metal that becomes the top of the firebox. You just can't let the gases come up into your cabin or into your house. You've got to stuff that and fill that somehow. So stone, like on the left and on the right, it would also add thermal mass. It would also radiate heat out and absorb heat. And then you could actually kind of surround the barrel in that same stone. There is 5 or 6 inches gap between the back chimney and the back of the barrel. So the stone could almost surround the barrel, take care of a lot of problems in terms of holding the barrel up, cover the dangerous area in the front where you just can't have a piece of metal only. You got to be a little bit, you got to protect yourself from carbon monoxide and harmful gases. But if you did that, you've got to have a way of doing it. So you need to get the barrel out maybe every 3 or 4 years or so, depending on how much you use the stove. Rocket stove produces much higher temperatures, intense temperatures, and people might only get 2 or 3 or 4 years on their barrel out of some rocket stoves. So this is much lower temperatures with the flames lapping up. I don't know. I don't have an experience of this, how long metal holds up. I just don't know. I would just make it so if I had to remove the barrel in 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years, or whatever it is, that I could get the barrel out. I wouldn't want to have to smash apart my entire stove. So, how do you do that? I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to leave a lot of this up to you. I guess I would. You still have to pack that where the barrel touches what's holding it up, where the barrel touches the metal there in the front, where the barrel touches the fire brick in the back and on the sides, or whatever you decide to use. You do have to put a rubber glove on and pack the heck out of that with the Imperial high heat mortar. And but that stuff's not strong. You can chisel that off pretty easily, get the barrel up. If I was building stone or whatever around the barrel, I guess I would use, I don't know, I probably would use a whole big thick inch of the ceramic fiber insulation. So the mortar for my stone of sand and type S, or whatever you decide to use, maybe even some dirt or some clay. It doesn't structurally need to be strong. It just needs to hold the stone together, and the mortar should also, absorb heat. I probably would use an inch of the ceramic fiber insulation against the barrel, so wrap it around, going up 10 inches with an inch of ceramic fiber insulation. So my mortar for my stone or whatever that surrounds the barrel never touches the barrel. That way, I could basically just shimmy the barrel out. I don't know. So I'm just trying to get you to think in a certain way about it. Just make sure you can replace the barrel. If you what's a stainless steel barrel? Like $200 you can get a stainless steel barrel. I mean, the temperatures they're not going to be anywhere near like what a rocket stove riser puts into a barrel. It's, it should be 400 degrees less than that. So would a stainless steel barrel hold up for 20 years? Probably, but they're like $200. These, I don't know what kind of steel these old oil drums are. So, okay, I guess I've said that enough. I'm not, to make a decision on your own there. And wherever, always have a double layer. Whenever the flames are lapping up at the top of your firebox, make sure there's a double layer of protection from harmful gases escaping, etc. In the picture here regarding the chimney pipe, you can kind of see the principle of making insulated chimney pipe. Stovepipe comes in 2-foot sections. 6-inch stovepipe, 2-foot sections. Some of it you have to snap together. It's a real pain in the neck till you get the hang of it. And then you surround it by 6 feet of galvanized, like dryer vent. It's still steel, but it's flimsy, and it is galvanized, which I've said in many videos. As galvanization burns off, it's extremely hazardous. The zinc going to a gas is extremely toxic. But I don't think it's going to burn off. Since you're having an insulation, or putting an insulation between the stovepipe and you're stuffing between the 8 inches and the 6-inch with some sort of insulation. So I've taken some temperature readings. I don't think the pipe ever gets more than 250. You probably need like over 500 or 600 degrees for the galvanization to burn off. I don't know. You have to make that decision on your own. I don't think it would burn off, so therefore it wouldn't be hazardous. I don't know. I'm just, be very careful. I was thinking, if you filled that 2-inch gap with like a cob, like some dirt, some cement, maybe a little bit of perlite. I don't know. I know perlite doesn't absorb. I mean, you could make a thermal mass almost out of the stovepipe itself if you stuff between the 6-inch and the 8-inch pipe with like a mud or a cob, whatever you want to mix in there that would absorb heat, that darn pipe itself might that would act as a nice insulation. You'll get no smoke because the pipe itself is so piping hot. It's going to burn up some smoke even in the pipe. I think so. It might be too far down the run for that, but it is possible. But can the pipe itself be a thermal mass? It would be awfully heavy. I mean, if you did a mud or a car, you need 2 or 3 people to put it in place. Where I probably just have a very light, like what's my insulation between the stovepipe and the 8-inch pipe is probably like light, perlite, or mineral wool, just super light. So you definitely would need help if you packed it. And also, your cap, you can get it's the cap on the 8-inch dryer vent comes with these caps at Home Depot and Lowe's. And you have to, of course, cut a circle out of the cap to let your smaller stovepipe poke through. Will your cap be heavy duty enough to hold 70 pounds of cob? If you're using it as a thermal mass, I don't know. Probably, maybe we're just going a little too far. If you don't care about a little smoke and you want thermal mass, just build that back chimney up 100 more bricks. You might be able to actually continue up with with pavers to make the chimney a little bit smaller. You might find a way to go up with just red brick. Although a 4x8 paver, your chimney width then gets smaller. And I don't know. I don't think that would be a problem to take it down a bit if you were stacking like red brick up. But I don't know. This is just, I can't test every little thing, guys. You saw what works with no smoke, and just if no smoke is important to you, just stick with that. Stick with basically what we did here. Even with mortar, if you go up 6-8 feet on that back chimney stack, that's a lot of cold brick that's going to take a long time to heat up. You could smoke for a half hour to an hour or so before everything really heats up, piping hot. Because remember the principle from last video is all the smoke is eaten up by the time the flames hit the top of the barrel. But if cold air is injected or it's running along a long channel of cold brick, then the temperatures cool back down. To me, no smoke then goes back to smoke. I've thought that was the case for a long time now, but I've almost proven it in the last few weeks, or especially the test that smoked. So anyway, it's just diminishing returns at this point. At some point, I can't try to anticipate everything you might run into. This is the best I can do. I hope this video gets out, and the basic design can help a lot of people around the world stay warm. I'm not sure. I've seen a lot of videos. I've seen a lot of things. I've never seen anybody do this sort of wall thing. So I hope my approach is new and novel, but if it's not, whatever. And I certainly don't need any credit. There's too many people want to take credit for it. No thanks. I'm happy to help. Just I'd love to see a video in 5 years. Somebody says I built the wall. They don't need to mention Matt or anybody else. Thanks a lot, guys.